And it is that time of the year. It is check-in time, which means I need you all to be really real with me for a few minutes. So be honest and tell me, how is your reading journey going so far this year? Because I can tell you about mine. I have read exactly 3 books in the entire month of January so far. And you know what? As a chronic non-reader who actually struggles to get back into this hobby, that's actually a lot for me, and I'm super proud of myself. I'm also excited to get into today's video, which is essentially my January reading wrap-up for all of my fellow horror enthusiasts out there on YouTube. Hey there, I'm Howie, and I am a chronic non-reader of fiction, a professional reader of astrology and tarot, and a planning enthusiast. Welcome back to my channel, and in today's video, as I mentioned, we are going to be taking a closer look at the 3 books that I read for the month of January, and possibly a sneak peek of what's to come in the month of February. So let's go ahead and dive in. So for January, I kicked off the entirety of 2026 with this particular hidden gem, Maeve Fly by CJ Leede. And honestly, let me tell you, if that cover art doesn't draw you in, then maybe the tagline describing it as Anaheim Psycho will, because I know that's what piqued my curiosity. And when they say Anaheim Psycho, they really do mean an homage to the OG American Psycho, Mr. Patrick Bateman himself. Except our main character here is a 27-year-old young lady who lives with her retired Hollywood starlet grandmother, has exactly one best friend that she gets along with and truly cares about, and works at the happiest place in America, Disneyland. It's Disneyland that she works at. So the story of Maeve Fly really begins in this book when Maeve's entire sense of extremely rigid and meticulously curated control of her life just suddenly gets pulled out from under her. And all of this careful calculation that she's made is ripped from her hands. And the thing with Maeve is she is entirely Delulu straight from page 1 of this book, and you definitely do not need a psychology degree to make that determination. Maeve is described as a carbon copy of her grandmother, like down to their appearance, down to their personality, and you can see in how much she worships her grandmother, actually deifies her. You start to see that there's a few more screws loose than is actually necessary. And once Maeve starts to feel like she's losing control over her life, her already unhinged mind just starts to unravel further and further. It starts with little innocuous things that, to us mundane folk, we wouldn't bat an eyelash at, but it greatly disrupts her very calculated perspective of the mundane world that she lives in. There are strong themes of authenticity versus artificiality and superficiality in this book, and Maeve truly struggles with the concept of perspective, her own versus how other people both see her and the world that she's living in. It really ramps up when she meets her best friend's brother. And she feels very strangely about best friend's brother, and she has no idea how to handle that. And as rug after rug after rug just keeps getting pulled out from under her, her insanity just starts to seep through until eventually in the last quarter of the book, she basically just says screw it and goes on a completely unhinged, ultra-violent rampage through the streets of Hollywood, basically embracing what she calls her inner wolf. There's a lot of predator and prey thematics played on in this book, where she and her grandmother view themselves as wolves among sheep. But unfortunately, because they feel they are outnumbered, this is where that concept of ostracization and loneliness comes from. Maeve struggles to connect with the mundane because she's so bloody unhinged. They can't reveal their true selves. As Tallulah Fly, Maeve's grandmother, puts it, if you reveal your true self, the wolf is put down. And so she warns Maeve to start crafting a persona that she can don like a costume. That's another theme that I find is really prevalent in this book, the idea of masks and costumes. And this is why Maeve is just so darn obsessed with Hollywood as an idea and with Halloween. And apparently eggs. You don't want to know what she does with the eggs, I promise you that. So, what did I dislike about this book? I mean, I really can't say much other than the absolutely obtuse monologuing that this girl does. I mean, we're talking about a female version of Patrick Bateman. So the way he overanalyzes and over-intellectualizes the most mundane happenings, you get the same effect with Maeve Fly as she's describing her day-to-day happenings and her job and her interactions with the sheep. I actually wanted to dislike this book. Those monologues and this idea of her being so many cuts above the rest because nobody could really truly appreciate the heart of Hollywood and its artificiality drove me up a wall. Her ability to over-intellectualize things is just a really unlikable quality to me, but it kept me coming back for more because I could tell she wasn't a sociopath. There are 3 things this woman loves more than herself, and that is grandma, that is best friend, and that is her weird fixation on playing Elsa the Ice Queen at Disneyland. When those things start getting taken away from her and affected, she completely loses her entire mind, or what's left of it. So there's a lot more depth to her than just simple homicidal maniac in the making. And I wanted to know more. Overall, I enjoyed this book. The gore is intense. The effed up stuff that this woman does to other people, what she fantasizes about, and the acts that she actually commits, I'm gonna just call it right here, right now. There are at least 2 instances in this book of non-consensual sexual violence, so huge trigger warning for anybody who's been curious about this book. All in all, I was super pleasantly surprised about this book, and I hear Leede has another book that is available. I believe I actually had it in my hand the last time I went to the bookshop, but had a big stack in my basket already, and I didn't want to overwhelm myself with too many new reads, so I ended up putting it back. But after reading this and getting over the pretentiousness of Maeve's character, I really enjoyed what I read in Maeve Fly, and I am looking forward to picking up another Leede book in the very near future. Next up on my reading adventure for January, we have Strange Houses by the faceless YouTuber Uketsu. Actually a Japanese YouTuber as well. So this person actually has 2 books published, I believe. Possibly more, but they're most famously known for Strange Houses and their other novel of a similar vibe, Strange Pictures. Now, I did try to do some research to figure out which one came first and if this was a series, did I have to read them in a certain order? And it turns out they just have similar titles. In fact, I believe Strange Houses was written first, but because the books were translated out of order, Strange Pictures hit the English-speaking community before Strange Houses. So Strange Houses is about an unnamed author, an unnamed blogger, who is approached by a close friend looking to buy a house to start a family. He approaches his blogger friend with the floor plan that he's just received from a real estate agent that doesn't quite look right to him. And so he wants a second set of eyes to take a look at this floor plan and tell him what is wrong with this. And the cool thing about this book, I will hand it to it, is it gives you the floor plans in the book. So you can like pause your reading adventure and just sit there with the images and try and, figure it out yourself before you read on and get the final solution. And that really excited me about this book. And I think it might have overhyped me a little too much, which I'll get to in just a minute. So as our main character is consulting his architect friend, and eventually he's joined by a third party who has an interest in this house, what ends up evolving into an amateur investigation into a series of strange events surrounding a series of strange houses culminates in a strange ending. I was not a huge fan of this book. I had expected so much more, and I think what I found most jarring is the language is very plain. And the translator at the end of the book does make mention of this and says that anybody can pick up this book and read it, and anybody can follow along with the mystery that is being built in the story. And therein lies problem number 2 for me, Anyone who knows me knows I love me a good puzzle. I love solving puzzles and mysteries. I love piecing things together. So I went into this with the detective hat on. Unfortunately, the language is so simplistic that it basically just spoon feeds you the solutions, and most of the book is just the same images over and over again, but zoomed in, or the aspects that you're supposed to notice as strange are circled. So you don't really get a chance to figure things out yourself. If I'm being extra frank, I found the ending kind of came out of nowhere. Like, when they first started theorizing, by they I mean the characters, they start theorizing about what's the purpose of these houses and how they're linked, and like, what is the creepy backstory behind it. And the first theory they come up with and just throw down on the table, I was like, where did we get this? Where is, sir, I need to see the receipts, I need to see the evidence, where are we getting these ideas from? There is quite a big twist, but again, you're not really given enough breadcrumbs to lead you to that twist. It really feels like it was spoon-fed to me. But I will say the twist actually has another twist on top of it by the end of the book, and that was kind of interesting because that made me go back to previous interactions between all of our characters and the history of these houses they were digging up, and it made me see them in a new light and a new perspective. Another thing that I think disappointed me about this book, and this might be considered a spoiler, I don't think it is because it has to do with the specific subgenre of this book, and I don't feel I can give a proper review or recommendation without giving you the full details of what type of book you're picking up. But if you don't want to know, you can scroll over to the next portion of the video where I hold up the next book and skip over this part entirely. So I went into this book kind of assuming it was going to be like a twist on the haunted house trope. So I was expecting supernatural. And I live for that stuff. I read horror because there's enough crazy, horrific stuff going on in the mundane world. You just turn on the news, you scroll through Facebook. I don't need any of that. I would like a break from that. So when I read my horror, make it supernatural. Make it balls to the walls, off the walls crazy. Make it insane and absurd. And it's not supernatural. That's all I'll say about that. It is not a supernatural horror story. All in all, I wasn't really a huge fan of this book. I do plan on reading Uketsu's other book, Strange Pictures. I had already purchased it before I finished this one. I was very eager and overexcited to get into this author's writing, but it just didn't jive with me personally. So we had a bit of a mediocre entry for the month of January. And last but certainly not least, in my January reading wrap-up, is a very close contender to my all-time favorite horror book thus far. I know, speaking of overhyping things, I feel like I might be overhyping this book a lot, but I really enjoyed what I'm about to show you, and that is Diavola by Jennifer Thorne. What a bloody fever dream this book was, and I do mean bloody. The story of this book centers around the Pache family. And the Pache family take an annual family vacation together for the sake of bringing the family together and reminiscing and nostalgia and the kids and, you know, all that typical family vacation stuff. And I can feel some of you shuddering and cringing on the other side of this screen. I know. Sometimes family and vacation in the same sentence can be a bit of a scary thing. And if your family is as dysfunctional as the Paches, you have all of my empathy. You really, really do. This family is messed up, and every single one of them needs to go see a therapist post-haste. Post-haste, like yesterday. So the story takes our family to Villa Tocola, and our main character, Anna, is basically the black sheep creative of the family, and the story is told through her perspective. There's just a lot of jealousy, envy, gossip, and passive aggressiveness built into this family. And then they go to a haunted villa, and let me tell you, this villa is haunted. Capital H. And what drove me nuts in the best way possible is this family is so delusional and dysfunctional that all that matters to them is making the family vacation wholesome. and about the family. And they essentially just gaslight the heck out of our main character and just pretend that nothing is haunted. Everything is fine. Everything is okay. So of course this family vacation goes about as well as you think it does. And I think this is why I love this book so much. So if you remember my last video that I did a reading review on, my favorite book of 2025 was We Used to Live Here. And I called this book Gaslighting the Horror Story. Well, let me tell you, Diavola is Gaslighting the Horror Story Part 2 Electric Boogaloo, and it gets off the walls crazy. This book really plays on what I think is my current favorite trope right now, and that's just the feeling that you are losing your absolute freaking mind and that you can't get anybody on your side. You can't convince anybody to believe and accept and see your perspective. That whole mental game that our main character has to dance around and play with is extremely compelling. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. But really, at the end of the day, I kind of wanted this house to win. This was another one where I wanted the house to win because his family is so effed up. Oh my goodness. I will say, save the children though. Save the children. The children didn't deserve any of that. Please let the children go. Everybody else, absolutely not. Through the gates of the inferno with all of you. Every single one of you should be ashamed of yourselves. There are a few really beautiful, well-written lines of prose in this book that I ended up writing down in one of my commonplace books. And I tend to do this. I'm like a little crow when it comes to literature. I love collecting words and phrases and prose and poetry in general. Thorne has a fantastic way of writing prose. I like the fact that she uses modern analogies when it comes to the hauntings. At one point, our main character is describing something in the dark of the villa as she's going to get a glass of water or whatever. And it's that trope of when you're going to the bathroom at 3 in the morning with all the lights off in your house and you look at the jacket you threw on your computer chair the morning before and you're just like, that's either still my jacket or that is my paralysis demon about to consume my entire face off my skull. And I can't tell which it is. I really appreciate that she was bringing a modern perspective and a modern tone to the way that she was writing the hauntings. All in all, this was a fantastic book, and as I continue reading throughout 2026, I'd be very interested to see if there are any other books that come as close as Diavola to dethroning We Used to Live Here, because that book still lives rent-free in my head, and it definitely will for many years to come. So in summary, January was actually pretty good. We had 2 out of 3 absolute hits. So Diavola, totally slapped. Maeve Fly, totally slapped. Strange Houses, All that said, and in all seriousness, I'm very excited to pick up this as a video series and start doing more book reviews in the future. I've already got February's lineup kind of sorted out in my head. In fact, because it actually technically is February, I've already started reading my first February book, which, spoiler alert for the next video, it's Ghost Eaters by Chapman. And I'm about 100 pages in already, and man, is this book good. It is tragic, it is heavy, the empathy is just really singing along the heartstrings, but I cannot wait to be talking about this during the next video. As always, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you gained some inspiration of some books to add to your own TBR, and if you are a horror reading enthusiast, let me know down in the comments below if you've got any other recommendations for me. Really, I'm kind of a one-trick pony when it comes to reading. I'm obsessed with horror. Specifically, as much as possible, supernatural horror, fantastical horror, and I don't mind dark horror either. Thanks again for tuning in. I cannot wait to see you all in the next reading wrap-up and the next video in general. Don't forget to take care of yourselves and each other. And by the way, keep up the good work with your reading. I believe in you.